One of the remarkable things about Samuel Pearce's spirituality was that it was an evangelistic spirituality. It was a missionary spirituality. And I relate the occasion where this is very well illustrated by Pearce being asked to preach in the early 1790s at the rebuilding of and opening of a Baptist meeting house at a place called Guilsborough in Northamptonshire. The meeting house had been burned down by an Anglican mob hostile to Baptists in Christmas of 1792. And 2 years later, in May of 1794, when they reopened the Baptist meeting house, Pearce was one of those who was asked to attend and preach. He preached on the Sunday. Andrew Fuller, his close friend and biographer, preached that evening. And then at lunch that day, though, while they were having lunch, a number of the people present asked Pearce if he would be willing to preach the following morning. And Pearce's response was that if they could find a congregation, he would be happy to find a sermon. But he emphasized the meeting had to take place at 5 in the morning. He hoped to reach a number of the kind of workers and farm laborers who would be part of these congregations before the preaching of the word, before they actually went out to before they went out to their duties as workers. And so at breakfast after that morning sermon on this Monday, there were a few ministers present, among them Fuller, Pearce, and Francis Augustus Cox, who was an 18-year-old and who never forgot what transpired after breakfast. Fuller was thrilled with the sermon that Pearce had preached that morning and said it was a good sermon as usual, but he said it was oddly structured. And why was it? It seemed to me, Fuller said, that you preached it and then in the last 15 minutes you preached the whole thing over again. Why was that? Well, Pearce indicated that he did indeed have his reasons, but he would rather keep them to himself. Well, that wasn't going to satisfy Fuller. Fuller was a bit of a bulldog when it came to certain issues like this, and he pressed him, laughing and joking. And finally, Pearce gave his reason. And he said that just as he was about to finish and resume his seat, he said he saw a poor man of the working class enter. And it went through his mind that this man had obviously labored to get there to that early morning meeting, but for some reason had been unable to get there in time and arrived at the close of the meeting. It could be, he said, that this man was a believer who loved to hear the gospel, or it could be that this was a man that had never heard the gospel. In either case, Pearce felt that this man's resolution to make the meeting demanded that Pearce would give him some minutes of his time. And so Pearce thought that despite criticism of preachers who might be present, like Andrew Fuller, he would give the man 15 minutes of his time. Francis Augustus Cox never forgot that moment when Fuller was silenced, as it were, at the love that Pearce evidently displayed for this poor man of the working class.